Okay, glad to see you here, Olivia. And let me pop over to the dashboard and we'll get started. I appreciate everybody being a little bit flexible, and we had to because of the weather, and we just, when I get those weather things, I'm just not sure. I do know there was a huge pileup out on 40, and I just never know with the weather, how the weather will be. But so I switched these over. And also, I'm hoping those of you who pop in and listen are also going to take heed of the email I sent everybody. The dean will be in Wednesday and to visit our class. So I hope we have a whole bunch of us there. I kind of said it's an all hands on deck. And so that's the ground-based portion. Now, I'm handling this as the as the virtual portion, obviously. And those of you who may need to take a look at my schedule, it's there. You know when to stop by my virtual office hours, and then the rest of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm going to be in Shawnee, and Friday, I never know. So that's why I just put a TBD. Okay, and we're going here. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the modules and where we are, and just kind of review, so we have a sense of the flow of what's going on. This week, of course, is week 12, and then, of course, next week is Thanksgiving, and then on week 14, that's flex time. And that's time for you to work on the finals. So the semester goes fast, and I try to give you flex time to work on your final exam. Then week 15 is the same story. And what I do on those days, in the class for you guys, for you folks on week 14 and week 15, I'll be I'll be online in the classroom, but I won't be doing any presenting. I'll just be there in the event people have questions. So it's kind of like just office hours just for this course. And then obviously, as we move into this, I try to start to spend more and more time over at Shawnee than I do otherwise. So we're good to go there. And then let's talk for a moment. And then, of course, the finals week. And you'll notice if you've had classes with me, you get this. Usually I'll have an extra credit exercise. Then I have a project type of assignment that's due at the start of the final exam period. And then I have at the end of the final items that are due at the end of the final exam period, and those are going to typically be quizzes or online exams. Okay, now if you try to come in on the day of finals and do all this stuff in 2 hours, you are out of luck. That's why I'm giving you flex time, the time to work on these projects, and that's why next week, of course, is Thanksgiving, but when we come back for week 14 and 15, during the class time, I'll be there, but I won't be doing any presentations or anything. I'm just there monitoring things like I was with Management 3603 this morning. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started, and we've got a couple of things, and this is the management decision problem over on 446. And now, let me say this. As I grade these, when I feel like that everybody's pretty much on top of things in terms of formatting, content, etc., that you're responding to the cases, I'm good to go with that. And it appears we kind of got some sloppy habits taken care of, so we're in good shape. Well, I want to talk about this management decision problem because it does put us into, it does bring into focus some of the issues. So I'm just going to pop over here to Vital Source, and here's the textbook. And let me log myself in. I should have done that earlier, but I didn't. All right, and then here we go. All right, and let's see here. I want pages 446. That's MDP. That's the management decision problem. So let me search the book over to 446. Away we go. And I try 446, not 46. My apologies. All right. There we go. Here are the management decision problems for this chapter. And as I said, you could do, I think, either 11.8, 11.9, or 11.10. I said either 11.8 or 11.9. Let me amend that. I thought I had changed that. If you want to do 10, you can, but you know, it's just a spreadsheet type of skill. And I don't know, you know, what all you're going to get out of doing that. So I think we'll stay with 11.8 and 11.9. And one of them deals with pharma. And one of the things you're going to see about these management decision problems, these items, are that they will give you a blend of different types of industries, which is beneficial to you. And you know, some of you may choose to do Canadian Tire, some of you may choose to do the pharma, but they each have some different types of problems that they're facing as regards their management information systems. And there's a fair amount of information here about these two companies. And again, if you're wanting to respond to it, basically when I ask you to, when over in the upload bin for you to put your work, I basically provide you a rubric that you can use. And again, they've got their own little set of problems, and U.S. Pharma is truly an information-based type of company. And so their MIS issues are going to be a lot different than those faced by somebody like Canadian Tire. And now, again, let me pop over to the textbook. And you said, well, you talked about a rubric. Okay, let's look at this for just a moment. I'll show you, because I give you some expectations. And again, choose the one that interests you, okay? Or it has, and I even tell you here the headings your report ought to have. If everybody's getting very good at doing this, and what you're going to find is when you follow that guidance and you add those headings, it makes writing these so much easier. And then, of course, I've shown you how to use Word to create a APA formatted document, how to follow APA citation style. The author date method that you use inside of in the work itself, your paper, whatever, isn't easy. The hard part of this is sources or the list of references or the list of sources. And again, Microsoft Word has the tool that you can use, and it basically becomes almost like a little form for a database, and you just fill the thing out and put the information in, and it formats it beautifully. And that's especially important when you're dealing with all these electronic resources are out here. and you go out on the net and you find something, and actually it's an article from a journal, and how would I handle that versus something if I went into the OBU business library and pulled it. And so I think use that formatting tool from Word, and you really can't go wrong. And I know that there are going to be some times when it's tough to find anything about the current status, okay, that deals with the MDP, current news articles about the firm, key financial data. If the firm is publicly traded, if it's not, that becomes a little bit difficult. So I think, again, everybody's been doing a good job with this and organizing their thoughts, and the key piece of this is number one, the key idea or concept in the chapter that links into these problems. And the reason that we've got them we've got these management decision problems is for you to say, okay, we covered a particular concept in the book, and how does that link up with a real world problem? And so that's what I'm always asking you to do, because as you go out and you go to work, that's going to become your toolbox, if you will, of how you respond to things. And we can't cover every situation. That would be impossible. You just simply can't. But there are going to be some generic types of issues that are going to arise that you do indeed want to try to address. Okay, so I think I go back here for just a moment, and then we've got the other assignment, and we'll pop back over here for that one. Now I'm going to close vital source off for just a second. We'll go back over here to 446 where we were. And let me close this off for just a sec. And here we are. And then we'll navigate a little bit through here. Okay. So you've got the quizzes over 13 and I think 14. Nope, just 13. Now I do have some resources in here that I want to address as far as what's in the text. And again, then we'll do a little bit of work. We'll take a little bit of time and look at chapter 13. I have each week when there's a fairly sizable piece of a chapter devoted to a topic, or if I feel like, okay, I want to enrich what you're going to get out of chapter 13, I'll add these types of resources, okay? And I want to go through them just briefly so you can understand why I've added them in. Now, I think it's obviously I've added some resources here about the emergence of GIS, geographic information systems, the emergence of these tools that we have to do location analysis, or what people will call spatial analysis. And I provide you some good information out there. ArcGIS is a tool that's produced, and there's an online version of it. It's a baby version by a company called Esri, ESRI. They're out in Redlands, California. And as I've said before, this is one of these areas where with cloud computing, with high-speed computing, with our ability to generate all types of images and data about our spatial environment, that we're just now really starting to see people kind of wake up and go, wow, here's a tool that I might be able to use in our company. And again, there are going to be some fairly typical uses, but if you really want to see how powerful the stuff they have is, you can go over to, and we've done this before, you can go to Esri Tapestry, and you can put in a zip code, and it will give you this beautiful layout. It will give you, first of all, a psychographic or a profile of the individual, of the typical individual within that zip code. And they'll give you things like, the population density, their, the age information, income, all kinds of things. And this is, and that's just the free version. The paid for version, the commercial version, is far more expensive, but it gives you what we call block data. And if you're a marketing major, this is probably time to have your ears really primed, okay? Because the United States government, it publishes more than anybody in the world, and they have, and the United States census data are probably used far less than they could be. And the census data, the problem with them is obviously, the full census itself only happens every 10 years. And then they'll have these 2 or 5 year intermediate kinds of samplings to try to see if there's any big trend emerging. Esri has developed an algorithm that lets them imitate the full United States Census, and they do this every year. A key part of that is we have what you call a census tract, and then you have what we call block data. Block data are at the household level, and that's really powerful stuff. And that's exceptionally detailed, a lot of density in that information, and it's a marketer's paradise, because there's so much information there about people and what they do, what they buy, their habits, that you can get, that when you have a mapping tool, you can take those tables that are there and turn them into something that visually is much easier to comprehend, and really designed to show you patterns. Okay, and not using those tools, and if you have them available, it's just the fact. Look, you paid for it; it's government information, and Esri, of course, they have their tool that develops these block studies, so you can go right down to the household level. And I've said many times, this is the golden age of marketing, because you really now have real-time data. You're not just messing around with an estimate or something like that. Because of the proliferation of all these devices and the cloud computing and all of those things that we've talked about throughout the course. Okay, so I have some resources there for you. Now I have a couple of other resources for you. And you'll notice that we've got Tableau, a SAS on big data, and IBM Big Data Analytics. These are 3 products out there that are designed to help us take data and turn them into something that we can see and understand, i.e. visualize. Okay, and Tableau is one of those also that tries to give you the best of both worlds, the best of a database and the best of a spreadsheet. Okay, so it's kind of a hybrid product, and they've also added in the capacity to use to create maps, which is just fantastic. Now it's open sourced at this point, so it still has some flaws, but it's really one of those tools that you're going to find yourself using. As far as spreadsheeting, you can't beat Excel. It's the best product out there. Database products, you're talking Oracle, SAS, SAP, but something that marries the two of them, and an MIS is, again, about putting things together in the company so we can identify our KPIs, key performance indicators, and these are the things that feed into the company's strategy, that feeds into its mission. So those tools are exceptionally good, and I've got the resources there for you. Now, there's a term that I use here that's big data, and that's what we call unsupervised or unstructured data. When we work with data and we try to convert it into information, it's stuff that's thrown in a table. Well, there's a lot of data out there that doesn't lend itself to that. And so when we talk about big data, we're talking about all kinds of information. As we mentioned before, everything from the data that's sent from your car to a server, okay, to a Fitbit is a good example of that. Fitbit it produces big data, and the whole point is, as we have computing occurring in so many different ways, in so many different devices, we've really moved beyond just the old thing of I'm collecting transactional data. I'm looking at all types of information that I've never seen before, and having the tools to take that, quantify it, and then visualize it and produce visualizations that you and I can understand and see, because we see in patterns. That's where things are headed. Now, I have also, you're also going to hear the term data lakes. And data lakes, the difference between big data and data lakes is that data lake is structured data, unstructured data, and a whole slug of data out there that we're just not quite sure what to do with it. Okay, so we'll add it on. And if you go and take a course on R, for example, people in the physical sciences use R, and they are programming, and they do because it's designed to take data and extract it out of difficult formats, clean it up, and get it to you. Okay, so that's part of the GI. Part of your MIS is the GIS itself. Now, also, the IBM has a product out, and I've got that for you to take a look at. And there's IQSS at Harvard, and as I check these links, sometimes I usually catch them if they're bad. This is the Institute for Quantitative Social Science. Okay, and these folks have hooked up with Harvard, and they're trying to promote the use of data science concepts and data science tools. So let me stop for a second, because I thought I heard a question. Did somebody have a question? Anybody? Okay. All right. If you do, please feel free. I'll try to answer it. But this is these folks are teamed up with Harvard, and you can see that they're trying to leverage these big data lakes, high-speed computing into doing a couple of things, and those are really come back to the heart of an information system or an MIS. Remember, it's a management information system. So managers evaluate or assess things, and they make decisions. So these folks are trying to augment that process and say, hey, we're here to help, and we can show you these products and what they can do. So again, there's a nice resource for you. I think it would be well worth your time to take a look at. And there are many organizations out there like that, but I thought it was interesting that they'd hooked up with Harvard. Now, I've also got some TED Talks here for you. And as I said before, the viewing on these is required. And I haven't figured out yet if I'm going to do a quiz over these or have you develop a quiz or exactly what I'm going to do with them. But I want you to go and take a look at them. And the reason is simply, these are the best minds out there, the people who are the most cutting edge, the deepest thinking people. And if I can give you a link and you can go see and listen to what they have to say, all the more better, because there's no way, I could afford to have them come out to Shawnee, Oklahoma and speak to us. And the beautiful thing about TED is they operate from a Creative Commons license, which means you can beam in there, you can see it as much as you like. I think TED is probably, I think they've got, I can't remember who funds them or provides them money, but my hunch is that there will be a point where, like YouTube, TED will have will sell advertising, they'll sell advertising, but they won't charge you. There's no subscription yet for TED, and there's some good, excellent speakers over there, okay, that we've got. And what will future jobs look like? I think that's one that's just fantastic. A long time ago, when I did a postdoctoral seminar up at MIT at Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's a very intimidating place. You've got the smartest people on the planet, and I was very fortunate that I had an advisor at my doctoral program who knew some people and got me in there. And it was a seminar series. So what it ended up being was we had these really smart people come in and talk to us about the future. And one of the most startling, I think, most interesting lectures, and this is 1982, almost 40 years ago, was a gentleman came in, and here was the title of the lecture: "What will we do when the last manufacturing job is taken by a robot?" And what he predicted was exactly what's happening, that heavy industry would move from the United States to Mexico to Japan to China, eventually down to South Vietnam, and of course South Korea, and then it would move on down eventually into Bangladesh and places like that. And there was just going to be this whole migration, and as those jobs were moving, because the people would work cheaper. China has the same type of problem we have now in many industries, because the people down in Vietnam will work cheaper per hour than the people in China. So when we talk about this and you talk about future jobs, you have to think about, for example, robotics. And his question is, what will we do then? And he gave some very incredible statistics. And again, some of the things he said would happen did, some of them have not. Now, do I think that my mother-in-law's Roomba is going to take over the world tomorrow? Ain't happening. But it's fascinating to me to have someone who's 92 years old who interacts with this technology, and she's even named it, and she uses her Roomba. And it's just, it's amazing to me. And she just loves having the thing. And of course, you have to set up, where it can go and all this business. But she's got somebody to sweep the floor for her. And what will there be in your life as you when you're my age? I don't know. But I certainly know that future jobs are going to be a whole lot different than they are now. And so, and the bottom line is, the more that the machines can, let's take Excel, the more than, or Tableau, like is one of the products, the more you have something that will pop up and give you visual patterns, and you can do overlays and look at the data in a lot of different ways, the more important you become, because it's like a delivery driver. You know the vehicle doesn't know where it needs to go, but you do. And if it can get you there really fast, and you can get everything loaded off really fast, more power to you. There were people when trains came about, when we completed the Transcontinental Railroad, and we had this incredible. Well, let me call it like this. At one point in the late 19th century, the United States had more railroad miles of railroads than anybody in the world. That's a startling thing to think about. And everybody thought railroads are going to do away with jobs. No, the jobs keep moving more and more to one of two ends. Okay, there are those people who are going to work with their back and their feet and their hands. They're going to clean buildings. They're going to wash cars. They're gonna wait on you when you go eat. There are all of those types of jobs. Even those jobs are going to demand some technical skills. Then on the other hand is the track, or the group of people who are, everything is going to be more and more and more about information, understanding information, collecting data, analyzing it, etc. The information content that we put into products and services just continues to grow. So this will be a good experience for you to go over and take a look at that TED Talk, because it's just fantastic. And this is a way to say, okay, you've got more than just the textbook. You've got some good examples, and then you have some of these speakers who can really give you some tremendous insights. The one thing about business that's really changed is this. In the past 30 years, the advent of the information revolution, okay, and you are living in a very significant time, just like your parents. Your parents lived through the rise of the computer. Your mom and dad had laptops eventually, which they never dreamed of. They have a computer on the desk. You folks lived through the age of the internet. But what connects you with your parents is the age of information resources and people understanding it. Information, other than people, is the most powerful thing that any company can have. So understanding that and where it's headed and what it's doing is something that just keeps pushing the boundaries in terms of what you need to do. And you will recall in one of our lectures where I talked about the fact that middle management's disappearing. So when you go to work for somebody, you need to have the skill set and the mindset that says, I'm the owner of this company and I need to respond to things as the owner would respond. I need to understand at the largest possible level and the smallest possible level what's going on. Now, there are going to be some things in different industries that will be important to you, but let me give you just a quick example. When back in the 1960s and 70s, we began to get worried about, will we run out of oil? All right. And back in the 1960s or 70s, discovery wells, about 1 out of every 6 oil wells that was drilled actually produced oil. Then if we what we found, if we went back into that area, roughly 2/3 of the time, we'd get we'd get we'd hit oil again. Why? Well, we had discovered oil collects itself, like you'll hear people talk about the Permian Basin out in western Texas. That's where the oil is, or the oil in the up in the mountains in the shale, or the oil that's up in Alaska. But to make a long story short, the probabilities really rested upon the fact of understanding if I hit oil here, I'm probably going to find oil within proximity. Okay? And so that changes how we might look at the costs and the risks involved with going in and drilling oil. Now, I know this can sound really amorphous and very gobbledygook. I get that, all right? But I can tell you now, by the time you're my age, I'm going to tell you this, your grandkids will laugh at you for having carried a phone around, or they'll laugh at you for having used a computer. It will look just as quaint as an old-time radio looks to you or me, or black and white television looks to you or me. And so this is a great talk. And you see, one of the things about MIS that the technical parts of it, we just barely covered the surface. The reason is you're not enterprise programmers, you're not computer scientists, you're business people. And you have to have some kind of understanding of what this all does and how it ties together. But more importantly, you need to know what to do with this. And one of the problems that many companies face today is they've got so much data, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to interpret it, what it might be telling them, or they know it's there. It's just so much of it that they can't, they just don't have the time to get it, they think, until some disruptive force comes into their industry, or until they find that their performance starts to deteriorate. And so talks like this one are well worth your time for someone to do some thinking. And then here's another that talks about the key to growth, race with machines. Another fascinating talk that I think you'd want to do that. And then the rise of human computer cooperation. When I turn on the television and I see these competing products of, you have this little thing that sits on the top of your table, and it's Alexa, or I don't know what the names of all of them are, but you ask them, turn on the TV or do this or that. That's the stuff. That was the stuff of scientific fantasy 50 to 60, 100 years ago. People still believe we'd be doing those types of things. Well, we have that type of cooperation. If you have a Fitbit, my wife uses a Fitbit, and I get tickled because she'll tell me, I didn't do my 8,000 steps today, and I just want to ask her if the Fitbit's gonna tell her that she's a bad person because she didn't. And so this business of how we cooperate and work with machines has some really profound implications for us out in business. And so, again, another great talk or topic, I believe, that you'll want to go out and see. And so I think there's some nice resources there. Well, I'm going to go back here to the module for just a moment. Okay, and go and take it up to the module level. Now, you have a quiz over Loudon today in chapter 13, and I want to take just a few minutes to go back. So let me I'm gonna pop up my vital source books again. Jumped out of them for a minute. Okay, they're not gonna make me, okay, here we go. And there we go. And so I want to come over to find chapter 13. And we're down into this where we're talking about building information systems, okay? And we'll go over there. And this set of key questions are what everybody faces when they decide to add a new, go change email systems or upgrade their website or on and on and on. And again, these are questions that drive companies batty because they haven't come to the point where they can take a management information systems and really see how that fits inside of company strategy. To them, it's just a bunch of geeks with a bunch of material, with a bunch of data, a bunch of machines. They don't really get that or see that. And that's why the authors of the text have really, really, really hammered us, okay, in terms of coming back to that model. And here we go again. Now, you've heard me say this in management. So you've probably heard me say this in every single class. When we have an algorithm, when we have a template, when we have a process, we avoid reinventing the wheel. And that's why we use these. And you could see this is fit with every single chapter because this is what one would call a virtuous cycle, if you will, in terms of using management, the organization, and technology to accomplish and solve certain business problems or whatever business problem we're facing, and then feeding it back and creating that virtuous cycle as we come up with resolutions to problems, or we get at the best or the optimal result that we do with given problems. Okay? It's worth your time to take a look at those, but what's important is that you see that you've got a template you can work with. Okay? And again, this is just being smart managers look for algorithms. Smart managers look for patterns because those are typically symptoms of underlying problems, or they are a solution or an opportunity presenting itself. Okay? And that's why I emphasize this, and the textbook also emphasizes this so much. And again, this is, what would be the term? Pattern recognition is very, very, very important. And you've got a way to see what's going on and perhaps a way to meet that challenge. And this chapter talks about the building the systems. And as again, here they walk you through an organizational change, risk and reward. I think this is a nice little diagram because they show you when you make changes with IT, when you build with systems or you adopt them, you've got to think about the amount of return you're going to get for that. Will it be high or will it be low? And then the amount of risk, high and low. I'll tell you something that makes me crazy, okay? Business meetings. Business meetings where the people could simply sit there and tell us of what they did, all right? And then once we've seen their report, we could all put a like, or we could pose questions. Okay. And then if we had an issue that we vote on, we'd have a survey monkey, I think it's called, and people vote. I'm not going to name that. I'm not going to name the small homeland-based university that drives me crazy. But here's what I see. When I'm in some of those meetings, and some of them are nothing but people report stuff to us, there might be a few questions, okay? And we might take a vote. But we all make a trek from our offices over. Now, I have yet to be to one where they serve brats and beer, so that's not, so the fun's out of it. Buffet, anything. So I think, why couldn't we just do this, put it out there in a screen, in a webinar form, and be at our desks and meet, and be done with it in 20 minutes, okay? Or hours and hours and hours of committee meetings, or we juggle them around because someone can't be there. One of the things you're going to find when you go to work is that people often don't put a price tag on time. And when I first, it's been a while since it happened, but I was here when we had a stretch of period when the email was down for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Okay. And we had, I don't know, a group of 40 of us that met. And after about the 5th or 6th meeting, I got myself in trouble. I said, hey, I'm looking around the room here, and based on what I think I know of the median salary, here's how much this meeting just cost us. Because time is money. And when our time is wasted doing unproductive things or doing rote types of things, it's no good. And the worst type of meeting is those where people in authority, will want to have a meeting. Will have a meeting just so they can say, "Well, we met and we talked." Now, no one dared to disagree with them. Okay. The other night, I was joking with people. I wrote on a couple of things on Twitter, and I got some kind of laughs and some nasty responses. I said, "There's not." After about 6:30, I said, "Well, all the votes are in, and Putin has won the election. Let's go celebrate." And man, I lit some people's fuse, which I thought was interesting, and some other people thought it was funny. Okay. But all of these come with some high risk and high return, and that paradigm. And you can see as we go from automation to rationalization, redesign, and then complete paradigm shift, that's high risk and high return. I've worked in higher education for a long time. And when I started, there were, I think, close to, 20,000 universities and colleges throughout the United States, right? And that number keeps dwindling every year, right? And we can look up at St. Gregory's down the road, who are no longer with us, and we're all shocked and we ask why. And it's a very simple answer. They did not stay current. They did not stay where they did not do the things they needed to do to be viable in the market. And voila. You see, right now, because I'm right now, I could have 1,000 of you in a section, and it's no more work for me than if I have 30 of you. And that the ability to leverage that technology is significant, very significant. If you look at the labs at Bailey, for example, as the enrollments grows, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And at a certain point, we're going to have to create a virtual lab or we're going to have to give everybody devices so the lab is in their device. And I don't know how we're going to get around that prospect. And who knows? Or how do we reach different markets of people? And how do we reach people in overseas who want an American degree, et cetera? Or should we? And again, St. Gregory's is one of those. And I can tell you that in my time, I've seen many, especially small schools, really in danger. And then the way they survived is they got online and they had enough numbers to sustain themselves. There's only so many dormitories you can build, and only so many classrooms you can build, and then at a certain point, the marginal utility or the marginal revenue, or for each one, new one starts to go south, and you're in trouble. That's why if you look at schools like OU and OSU, OU particularly is slowly but surely demarketing itself from kids in Oklahoma. Why? Well, they want to cherry pick students. And so they have these dorms and first year experiences and all this stuff, because they believe the more of that they do, it elevates what happens in the campus, and you have alumni who go out and do magical things and all this stuff. Okay. So I'm speaking from just simply that perspective of having seen how all that happens. I think one of the amazing things that's occurred, and again, this talks about these risks and returns, is I have worked with and 3 different individuals who decided to create their own academic community. So they created a journal, and then they started having conferences and meetings. And pretty soon they had another journal, and then they decided to go online, and then they decided to sell their books off Amazon in PDF form, and on and on. And there are many of those out there now, and they're really changing academe, because they're providing some opportunities for people, especially folks overseas outside the United States and Europe, who would never get those opportunities. So there's always this risk-reward trade-off, and then the authors do a nice job with that. When we talk about a paradigm shift, they mentioned that back there for a moment. I want to talk about that for just a second, because I've had a few of those in my or gone through a few of them in my time. The one that was the most startling for me was I went to work at a university out in Arizona. At the time, they relocated since, and I was of the mindset that a section of a course was 8, 6, 10, 11, 20 of you. Okay, that's a section. And I went to work for these folks, and I find out, and I said, how are they so flexible in their schedules? Okay, well, come to find out, each student was a section. Totally blew me away. So every student had their own schedule tailored completely to them, and they had an advising system that was completely automated. Now, granted, these were graduate students who are not going to come with transfer credits or anything like that. Okay, that's when things get complicated. Or you say, "Oh, I don't like Professor so and so in Old Testament. I'd rather take it with Professor so I'll wait next semester." Stuff like that. But they'd have everything all programmed out. But each student was a section, which meant people could start school at any time throughout the year. And so for our admissions counselors, it was a beautiful day every day. They didn't fight and scrum and battle to get this group of new people in. Okay, they said, "No, we're going to take people as they come and as they enroll." And adult learners, people are like that who have to go out, who don't go through a traditional program, tend to be people that want to get through fast. They might have an employer breathing down their neck. They might just simply want to get it done. They're not people who could go off and go to school and maybe live on dorm and all of that. I was an adult student and went through my graduate programs, worked, and I can tell you it was I had some experiences, and I was lucky because I had some faculty advisors who could open some doors for me that allowed me to have some flexibility to work. But without that, I would have had a tough time. So when we went through that paradigm change of, each student's a section, enrollment was year-round, registration year-round, and completely automated. So if you said, I want to get a DBA in business, okay, boom. Now they had they had to do some transcript evaluation, but we had that all automated. So we knew we take this, we don't take that. We take this, we don't take that. And of course, at graduate school, you don't have that much, but I was just amazed at how they did that. Right? And I've been an advocate for trying to pull something like that for a long time, but I'm not getting any traction where I am. And then you could see this. This is an interesting figure right here. Okay, for the reason being that purchasing a book online was so foreign to people 10 years ago that it was strange. It was weird. But I worked for a university. We served primarily adult students. And one of the ways, and these students would be a cohort, they'd go together. Like you guys have, what do you call them, a learning community? They'd have a cohort of 10 or 12 people, and they'd go through their program together. And so we'd have, as we were ending one course, UPS would drop off the books for everybody for the next course. There was no bookstore. You didn't go in to buy stuff. And if you'll notice, you're going to see with our bookstore at school, less and less and less books and more just stuff to sell you. T-shirts, gadgets, pens and ink and paper and all of that. Because it becomes, you want, if you have a retail establishment, you don't want to be a warehouse. But they often become that. And that's one of those things that's changing. And I know many of you go off and you buy your books at Amazon, or you buy them from Barnes and Noble or whoever, as opposed to just simply going over to the bookstore and buying the books. And this revised process that they have here says, okay, if we don't have it here, we search the online catalog, and if the answer is no, we go to another online bookstore. So it's just this loop. You go find it. And really what's going on here is nothing too much different than Google. And I know that many of you, when you get the syllabus, will go out to Google and you'll start looking for your books at Amazon or wherever, and then have them delivered to you and all that business, rather than going through Tree of Life. Although we're contractually obligated to say the official book comes from that bookstore. Well, it's an interesting flow chart, okay, and in terms of purchasing a book online. So again, one of those things that becomes transformational in how a company changes its business model when it builds information systems. And there's some good sections here. And they give you this, how they build, how these produce, good or evil, the core activities. And then the authors do a great job of walking you through what we call the system development cycle, or the SDC. That's what I know it as. And this is a process whereby we say, okay, we're going to change the system, or we're going to change a piece of the system. Becoming a system thinker is exceptionally important for you if you want to be successful out in business. A systems thinker understands some things. First of all, that system thinker understands that if I make a change in any part of the system, there will be intended and unintended consequences. And so, am I ready for those? Okay? Am I ready for them? And then the analysis that has to occur to figure out what is it that we need to do. And so there's the SDP, or this, I call it the system development cycle. It's also known as that, but it's, you can see how it closes the loop and walks you through. And again, it's a paradigm to say, okay, how do we, if we need to change how we do payroll, how do we do that? Through each one of those steps, okay? Like information requirements. And again, you want to take a look at that, because this is, as a business person, it's highly unlikely that you'll be doing anything like this on your own, but you'll be a partner with the IT people, or your MIS people, or computer people, or whatever you call them, walking you through each of the specs that have to occur. This is it's just like building a house, or making or designing a product. You have specifications, you have specs, and you have a whole step that takes you through that. And again, I don't think all of you have to take it, but I think one of the most beneficial courses you get here is the project and the product course. And I guess Dr. Green focuses a lot on project management, because, and there are people out there now who can get a degree in process management, you get a certificate in it, and they go to work for somebody, and they may not know how, they may not be an engineer, but they understand how to put a project together. And that's a great skill that's needed out there, and somewhat similar to this in terms of the in terms of the system development cycle. And it walks you through the whole process of conversion, and they show the data flow for a mail-in university registration. We're going to mail it in. Okay, why mail it in? You can you can banner it in, self-service banner. If you think about the name, self-service, you can enroll yourself. Well, a couple of other ideas they talk about here. I'm trying to hit what in my brain I would say is probably going to be of useful. Well, prototyping, yeah, and they'll walk you through just some of these processes. Okay. Now, when you hear people talk about software as a solution, all right, it is what it says it is. It's, okay, I have a problem. I need some software that will give me a solution to this problem that will help me deal with it or handle it. So you've got a nice interactive session here with this company in terms of simplifying their sales processes and trying to take that software as a service, rather than just being something you have to use, but it becomes a service to the customer, to your vendor, to you. And so there's some good information there for you to take a look at. Chapter 13 is an excellent chapter. I think especially because it walks you through the systems development cycle, so you can see that there is a process by which you introduce new email, or you introduce a new web design, or website, or tracking system, or whatever you would want to call it. It's designed to it's designed to give you the feedback that you need and to push you through that cycle that we talked about there that occurs every time, that virtuous cycle. So 13's important chapter, and I think it's important for you in the end to give you a full sense of what it's like for the people behind the scenes, the help desk, the database administrators, the programmers, the people who make things happen. What is it that they have to go through and communicate when management says, let's do this, let's do that, let's change this, or let's add this new system. And they're trained, they should be trained to understand the implications of all of that, and what does it mean. And one of the products I've been involved with, I've done a lot of work with different learning management systems. I've worked on all the major ones. I worked with Blackboard. I was a reviewer for their exemplary courses for 4 years, so I saw some of the very, very best uses of Blackboard one could ever see. And Blackboard is absolutely, totally the best product out there. It's also exceptionally expensive, and so when you look at it, when there were decisions made, I was on the university committee to say, well, why don't we just go to Blackboard? I said, because we're not all online. If we're all online or web supported, it makes sense. But Canvas was the next choice for us. And Canvas has some quirks. It's got some things that aren't very good, but it's not too bad. And making the transition with it involved people getting used to how it looks and how it works. Well, I think I've pretty much gone through what was there in chapter 13 and talked about some of the MDPs. And Wednesday, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the GIS and those systems. And primarily because these are things that are going to be coming online and becoming incorporated into companies. And everybody at a certain point is going to be, the stuff that looks very exotic today will, in 5 or 10, 15 years, that will be run-of-the-mill stuff. Today, when you and I work with Access, we're working with a product that when it first came out, nobody except the largest companies in the world had it. Same thing with SAP or SAS or Oracle. It just had not been priced down and user ended down to be able to be used by people. So we'll look at that. And we'll kind of focus a little bit on GIS, and we might take a trip over to Esri Tapestry and take a look at it. So we'll focus some on that. And I might also hit some of the high points in chapter 14 and 15. Now, again, I sent everybody an email, and I see I've got 11 of you here, 10 of you here, so I'm glad to see that. I sent out an email to everybody. Thank you, all of you are here. Now, on Wednesday, we're going to have a visitor. The dean's coming in. And I know he's going to be very curious about how this all works, and how it all works, and are folks coming to class, or are they attending? And we've worked through all of that. And again, I want to make sure that I alert you so that you understand that if he shows up and we have two people, you're the ones who may suffer because he may say this isn't working. Now, again, attendance, as I've taken it, has been you're physically attending. Let's take right now. You're here, you're watching the video, okay, or you're logged in and you're looking at the screencast. You're good. That's go. No, or if it's a ground day, you're in a seat in the chair, okay? And then the other thing I also look at is to see if you logged in that same day, okay, up to some point in time, typically 11 or midnight. And what's consistently occurred is that as I just to be honest with you, I went back to take a look at my attendance from my old sheets when I used to you had to be in the seat in class. And the attendance is about the same. And so I thought, oh, okay. And so I'm having some people who have some attendance issues, but nothing egregious like where they might have been headed towards. But I want all of you to get the word out. If you like the format and you want to have the flexibility, fine. If you feel like you're getting cheated or robbed because you're not in a chair, twice a week, let me know, because the moment you whine and complain that you got to be in class, I'm going to say to you, hey, wait a minute, you had an alternative, okay? So that's part of the dynamic that's occurring, and I think he's curious, as many people are, about what goes on and what we do, and I think I believe many of you find this a very beneficial way to do it. There's some kinks, there's some flaws, there's some ways at times that people, it's not perfect. But if you're basically, and especially if half of your athletes and you've got to be gone, et cetera, this is the only way I know right now for us to really address the issue of making certain that you get a good education, or give you the opportunity to be fully engaged in the class. And I could say this, when I look back at the end of the semester, I have more hours of instruction than anybody else in the College of Business. I never stop and you'll notice every time it's a class, I don't stop and give you, I don't stop and grade your exams during class or anything like that. Because I feel like that's, I don't know, to me, that's just kind of a waste of your time. That's my opinion. Okay? So I hope you'll be there, and he'll feel better about the model and what we're doing. I don't think he's opposed to it. He just wants to make sure that we have some integrity with it, and that people aren't falling through the cracks. And especially concerning, I really watch things like a hawk with freshmen, because that's where a person could easily fall through the cracks. But you guys are past that, and you're doing pretty well. The attendance rates, as I said before, are roughly as good or better than what I had when you all sat in the seats, and I had a web-supported course where I might have exams online, but I didn't do screencasts or anything like that. Okay, thank you so much for your attendance. I appreciate it, and I will see all of you on Wednesday. And we'll do some talking about geographic information systems, the next big build or addition that's coming to the MIS house. Thanks a lot, and have a good one. And let me stop before anybody have a question? I keep forgetting to ask. Comments, questions, anybody? Okie doke. Thank you so much.